Yo, what up? You already know what it is. It's not a podcast. It's just my thoughts with Rob Markman. You know, I use this channel, these videos to talk about music, to talk about the hip hop business, a lot of what's going on currently. But you know, I think it's a dope vehicle to also share information, right? To share perspective of things that might have happened years ago that, you know, because there's a bunch of just different generations on this platform. I talk to a bunch of people who come into hip hop at different points in time. So, you know, I firmly believe that, you know, in order to know where we're going, we definitely have to learn our history as a culture. So today I wanted to take a minute, and I've been wanting to do this video for a minute. I want to do it on a group that is very, very important to Southern hip hop, in my opinion. To Atlanta hip hop, in my opinion, and a group that has accomplished a great deal and broke down doors, but doesn't necessarily get the credit, at least in my eyes, right? I don't want to strip them of any credit that they do get, but when I'm on social media and when people are doing their throwback posts, when, you know, all of this is going on, I don't see it on my timeline. So, you know, I wanted to address that. The group is called Arrested Development. So we're going to use this episode today to talk a little bit about them. Also want to remind y'all to join. We got memberships now, so y'all could click the button down there. We got a community level membership. And then we have a monthly music membership, which is like a book club, but for music. And this month we're going to be listening to Drake's Nothing Was the Same. We have a Discord where we talk about music. So you get membership to the Discord. And then we'll do a live stream for members only, where every month we'll break down an album that we go back and listen to and kind of analyze and talk about how we feel about it. This month we're going to do Drake's Nothing Was the Same, which is personally my favorite Drake album. So, you know, it'll be cool to kind of see if it still stands up over 10 years later, especially after this battle where Drake is now with his career. Do we feel differently about it? Do we feel stronger? Do we feel that it's weaker than we thought it was when it first came out? Did it stand up to the test of time? Is it better than it was? You know, we don't know. So we'll talk about it. So definitely join. Would love to see y'all there. Would love to have y'all a part of that. But like I said, I've been having this video in my mind for a minute. And shout out to legendary Jerry, who is big in the music industry, definitely down south, definitely from Atlanta, who was around in the 90s and around working a lot of these records and knows a lot about history, specifically the history of Atlanta. And I bumped into him. I was at Angela Yee's Lip Service podcast with an artist that I'm working with by the name of Win. Win was a guest. And you know, me and Jerry just get to talking, and I know Jerry is a historian. And so I asked him, I'm like, yo, I got this theory about Arrested Development. I feel like they don't get a lot of credit, right? So I just want to talk about, we know how important the city of Atlanta is to hip hop. Undeniable, man. Like what Atlanta has done for over 20 years in hip hop. Has been nothing short of amazing. The contributions have been astounding, and we've all benefited. And then, you know, I'm from New York, you know what I'm saying? And I'm from that era where New York commanded so much of the attention in hip hop and got so much of the credit in hip hop. Deservedly so, and at times maybe undeservedly so. You know, like New York was so big and everything had to run through New York in terms of labels and radio and all of this, that maybe other artists from regions just weren't getting their fair share, right? So we know how important Atlanta is to hip hop, and Atlanta's contributions is special. Even before Atlanta might have got on the world's radar, right? We're talking about early Atlanta hip hop pioneers like Raheem the Dream, MC Shy D, Kilo Ali, Mr. Collie Park, who was DJ Smurf at the time. DJ Toomp even goes back to the 80s. And, you know, then you get into the 90s and producers like Dallas Austin, who was huge in crafting that sound of the city. You know, you think about LaFace Records, Babyface and L.A. Reid, who weren't from Atlanta but set up shop in Atlanta. You know, so there was a lot going on in Atlanta in the early 90s, and this movement is starting to pick up steam. Jermaine Dupri, of course, with you know, he was involved. Another Bad Creation was another group out of Atlanta that kind of broke worldwide, definitely broke nationally. Jermaine had been a part of that at the beginning, and then developed Crisscross, which was huge. And then, we get to the Brat and the So Def era, and that starts to take form. And then, of course, there's Outkast, right? In 1994, when Outkast and the Dungeon Family came out with Southern Playalistic, and then Goody Mob dropped Soul Food the next year. I think that officially put the world on notice about what was going on in ATL. I would say, because I've always said this, like, even like Crisscross, Jump, though coming out of Atlanta, though we give Jermaine Dupri all his props, kind of sounded like a Naughty by Nature record. Like it was heavy influenced by Naughty by Nature, who was really big at that time. So it wasn't like it gave us like a full taste of what Atlanta was about. Like, you had to play the game a little bit, and you still had to kind of sound like what the sound was, and Naughty by Nature was running things. Even when the Brat dropped with Functified and Brat's from Chicago, Jermaine being from Atlanta, but that still very much sounded like a Dre and Snoop record. That sounded like a LA record. So, it's coming out of Atlanta, it's making moves, but didn't all the way give us that feeling, or made me feel like, oh, that's what's going, like, this is just me speaking personally. When I first heard Outkast, I'm like, oh, okay, that's Atlanta. Like, that's what they on. Like, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to Outkast. And then, of course, there's Andre's famous "The South Got Something to Say" comment at the 95 Source Awards, which maybe I'll do a whole nother episode on the 95 Source Awards, because I have feelings around that too, and how that really became a lightning rod for the South to really, took their respect. Like, if you wasn't gonna give them the respect, they was gonna take their respect, and that's not just Atlanta. That's what Luke did down in Miami, and what Luke did for all independent artists. That's what Tony Draper was doing out in Memphis, and 8 Ball and MJG. That's what Scarface and Ghetto Boys were doing. Rap-A-Lot was doing out there in Houston. So there's a lot going on in the South. Obviously, UGK, all of that. So, but one group that I want to shout out that was huge and formed out of Atlanta is Arrested Development, right? The group it was a group / collective. It consisted, the MC, his name is Speech, headliner, was a part of the group. The late Baba was like their elder almost. He was in the video, so it was like this dynamic of this really young movement, but they kept this older gentleman with them, who it just looked different. It made you take notice, but they really respected him as an elder. It was a whole collective. Deion Farris was in the group. If you're up on Baby Tate is a dope artist out of Atlanta, super fire artist. I fuck with Baby Tate. Her mom is Deion Farris, so that's how long her roots run, and her DNA in hip hop and Atlanta hip hop. Speech was from Milwaukee, but he moved to ATL when he was a teenager in 1987. So the group blew up out of Atlanta. They was known for just Afrocentricity, which was big in the early 90s. The music, hip hop there was a lot more positive message permeating, like you could really get on radio, and it didn't have to be negative. So Afrocentricity was big. They were inspired by Public Enemy's Speech had talked about, and they reminded me a bit of the Native Tongues, the Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. Like it was very much like healing music, soul searching music, but it was fun at the same time. But they were also their own thing, right? Like I don't want to define them as like Public Enemy meets Native Tongues, because they were also their own thing. They brought something new to the game. So, as much as we celebrate ATL, we got to celebrate Arrested Development. Now, you just check the stats. They had 3 singles in the Hot 100 at a time when hip hop, we're used to it now. Like, look at Not Like Us has been top 3 for like damn near the whole summer, maybe since May. You know what I'm saying? Like, hip hop didn't dominate the charts like that. Not the Hot 100 charts. Like, we had rap charts, they had urban charts, but the Hot 100, they dominated. They had 3 top 10 singles. Their debut single, Tennessee, was number 6. Also, it was number 1 on the hip hop rap chart. Mr. Window peaked at number 6, and People Every Day peaked at number 8. And that was a remake of Sly and the Family Stone, Everyday People. They just called it People Every Day. Tennessee sample Prince, Alphabet City. So they were dope. All three singles were gold. And I remember thinking that the group was from Tennessee because of the single, right? Like the hook is, they shout out Tennessee at the beginning of the record. So I'm like, oh, this is what hip hop in Tennessee sounds like. But they blew up out of Atlanta. They really came from Atlanta. The record Tennessee was because Speech wrote it after going to his grandmother's funeral in Tennessee, where he also connected with his brother, and then his brother died a short time after his grandmother, so he was inspired to write that record. Mr. Wendell was a story about Speech developing a relationship with a homeless man and the things he learned from him, and it was kind of talking about how we like disregard people in a tough situation. We disregard the homeless, like the rest of the world would just see him as a bum. But Speech had got to know him and would give him money, but would gain this like wealth of knowledge of the things that this man experienced in his life. That was a gold single. Like, it sounds crazy to feel like records like those get to blow up, but this was the early 90s. These were huge records in 92. Then their debut album comes out. It's called 3 Years, 5 Months, and 2 Days in the Life of, and the album went 4 times platinum. Again, this is an era where you had to go to the record store and buy the record. And then this is still the early 90s when SoundScan is still like a new thing. So sometimes you would buy it from like a mom and pop shop as opposed to a Sam Goody or a big chain store, and it wouldn't even count. So some of these record sales didn't even count, but they went 4 times platinum. They won a Grammy in 1993 for Best New Artist. They won a Grammy that same year for Best Rap Performance by a duo or group. That was for the single Tennessee. They won a VMA at MTV for Best Rap Video for Tennessee in 92. The next year they came back. They won a VMA for People Every Day. Like, Arrested Development was huge, like incredibly accomplished, like huge, especially in this era. It's so funny because we celebrate the stats. Like, sometimes people will have like a really whack record, but the fan base will rally around the stats. Well, they streamed this much. They're the top streaming this. They're the top. We're so much into the sales and the stats and the this and that in this era. And it's just so incredible to me that we don't celebrate this group enough because their stats like backed it up. Now, their second album didn't do, it was a critical like panned and it didn't reach, it was a commercial failure by the standards that they set. So it was really kind of this one album that launched them. But at the time, like, I mean, these are just huge numbers. These are breaking down doors. And, again, I know we like to talk about, especially me coming out from New York, like, we hear a lot, like, New York didn't fuck with the South. New York don't fuck with the South. Like, and that's a whole bigger conversation, but I just don't think it's entirely true. There was a lot that I think if you were in New York, you weren't exposed to. But, I mean, again, the Arrested Development played all day, every day on the radio, along with A Tribe Called Quest, along with Wu-Tang, along with Nas. They were probably a year. Their run probably ended right when Biggie's run started, but like kind of the early Biggie records you would hear on the radio with them. So with Snoop too, we also heard a lot of Dr. Dre and Snoop. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't an abundance of it, but there definitely was stuff that we were rocking to. And this was big. So it just felt like enough for me to be like, yo, let's take time and salute this group. So, if you heard of Arrested Development, maybe you go back and you reminisce. If you never heard of them, maybe you check it out. But it was definitely an interesting time in hip hop. So hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you think. All right. Peace.